Hello and welcome to Holy Land Uncovered. I'm Emily Francis. Today we're celebrating the Jewish influence of Renaissance Italy, from the Bassano family of Venice to the journey of Dona Grazianasi through Venice and Ferrara. What if everything you thought you knew about the origins of Venice Carnival and even William Shakespeare was all fiction? Here's my exclusive special report about the converso secret Jewish Bassano musical family of Venice who changed English history.
Antonio?
What's in a name?
Antonio is certainly undone. I will have Antonio's heart.
Everything.
Will not be made a son.
The Merchant of Venice is a play about the Bassano family. Antonio Bassano was the Merchant of Venice. He was the merchant who carried his merchant business even to London. So we know that they carried on the business of the merchant business for at least 4 generations after him.
In Belmont is a lady richly left, and she is fair. Her name is Portia.
The character of Bassanio was his brother, Battista Bassano.
3,000 ducats.
And for 3 months.
Let the forfeit be an equal pound of your fair flesh to be cut off and taken.
And all of the characters in the play are related to the Bassano family.
Shakespearean scholar, author, academic philosopher, and ordained minister Dr. Peter Matthews would know. He's married to one. Donna, whose great-grandmother Florence Emilia Bassano and grandmother Ada Bassano and husband Albert closely guarded the 500-year-old family secret that they descended from Antonio Bassano.
The words Albert used was something like, it will rock the foundations of English history when you discover the true facts about the family. And that began my search into the Shakespearean works, the sonnets, and into the entire family. They certainly realised that they were a Jewish lineage. They certainly realised that they were Levites and that they were a musical family.
Bassano's ancestors go back to the golden age of Spain, with Alvaro I actually being a naval commander who is said to have served with Christopher Columbus. The floodgates of inspiration opened. Peter has now spent over 25 years unearthing an aqua alta amount of forensic evidence that has been submerged in the waters of the mystical city of Venice for half a millennia.
Recognized as nobles in Italy between the years 1259 and 1483, because in 1483 they were recognized as the founding fathers of Bassano del Grappa.
Murals of the Bassano dynasty still are painted on buildings in Italy today.
In 1476, Jews were banned from Bassano. So what they did is they hid as ascetic Franciscan Christians, but continued their teaching on their Jewish and Zoharic beliefs.
Antonio's wife, Elena Danasi, was a relative and contemporary of Dona Grazianasi, a prominent banker, patron of the arts, and heroine who defied kings to rescue victims of the Inquisition and ultimately bought land in Tiberias from the Ottoman Empire.
She was the first Zionist in the sense that she wanted to get Jews to live in a land where they govern themselves. This was her ultimate ideal. And this is how she managed to convince Suleiman the Magnificent to give her Tiberias.
Family patriarch Geronimo Bassano was a master Kabbalist who worked for and was a close friend of Venice's Doge Andrea Gritti. Geronimo was the Guardian di Matin, the leader of musical processions, known today as the famous Venice Carnival.
It ended up in a Catholic mass, but it was birthed out of Judaism. It wasn't birthed out of Christianity, and were in actual fact birthed out of the festivals of Sukkot and Purim. You see, It was due to the heroism of Queen Esther, who hid her identity, hid her Jewish identity, just the same as the Bassano family.
Geronimo and his 6 sons, Antonio, Baptista, Giacomo, Alvise, Jasper, and John, were known as the secret Jewish guardians of the ancient mystical arts. They even created some of the very instruments still used to this day.
The original creators of the bassoon, they created a whole range of woodwind instruments. The recorder, the lute is particularly theirs, especially the 13-string lute. What a magnificent instrument.
Peter says the Bassanos lived outwardly as Christians, like many forced to convert during the Inquisition. But behind the masks, they were masters of Kabbalah and leaders of several Venice confraternities known as the Scuola Grande di San Marco.
They had a Kabbalistic imagery in everything. Every single thing they did, even the painters, which extended the Bassano family, they were the same.
The Bassano family of Venice originated centuries earlier to this region of Israel, home of the balsam plant. In fact, their coat of arms is a tree of life.
Peter even found the Bassano's Tree of Life family crest in plain sight in Venice, a symbol of their birthright that started with their ancient Judean ancestors.
There was one balsam tree in Venice. It was outside the church that they used to attend, but apparently it had to be cut down in the end, which is a real shame.
Peter has published 17 academic papers and 3 books with photographic, historical, and even engraved evidence in the instruments themselves.
They put a stamp in all of their instruments. Their silkworm moth was burnt into there to know it was theirs. And the silkworm, of course, is the divine radiance of the Zohar, Daniel 12:3. You have 3 bees, and then you have the tree of life below. And that particular tree species is the balsam tree.
The balsam tree, also known as balm of Gilead, is native to the Dead Sea region of Israel. But the history of the plant goes as far back as Queen Sheba's gift to King Solomon, and was used as anointing oils for all the kings and priests of Israel.
In fact, it's even believed that their family goes all the way back to the Essenes, the early Kabbalists before the age of Christianity. It is believed that the Essenes, which were studying in this area where the Dead Sea Scrolls were found, used the balsam oil for alchemical purposes.
There are over 24 references to the balsam oil in the Shakespearean works. No coincidence, since Peter has revealed that the secret family recipes were passed down orally for thousands of years. Rivers of balsam are even referenced many times in the Zohar itself.
Judah the Prince Hanasi was the holy teacher and leader of the Jewish community during Roman occupation after the Bar Kokhba revolt. He was also the chief redactor of the Mishnah, the Oral Torah. Dr. Matthews has found that Bassanos were most likely involved in the writing of the Mishnah. However, they did so under pseudonyms on purpose.
Peter, who is also a collector of ancient manuscripts, has tracked down original copies of the Passover Haggadah and the Zohar that was actually printed by the Bassano family.
You'll find Isaiah Bassano, who taught Ramchal. Rabbi Isaac Bassano was the one who actually supervised the printing of the Zohar of Mantua. Tikkun HaZohar was in 1557.
You think you know a story, but you only know how it ends. To get to the heart of the story, you have to go back to the beginning. Is it better for a king to be feared or loved?
Peter has gotten a copy of the 1544 Sefer Harefu Ot, Book of Remedies, written by Antonio Bassano.
And it is known in the Sefer Harefu they treated gout for King Henry VIII. And there's numerous references throughout the Sefer Harefu about King Henry VIII in it. There was one particular remedy, I can't remember off the top of my head, but it had fruit of balsam with a couple of other ingredients, and that was used to treat his fistula, something similar to hemorrhoids, I believe.
Peter has uncovered numerous smoking guns, proving that King Henry VIII of England was mad about the Bassano's talent in music, medicine, theater, and Kabbalah.
They said he had violent mood swings. He was almost raving mad at times. You could compare King Henry VIII to King Sol, who had David play his musical instruments and soothe his soul. You know, that's really what the Bassanos were about to King Henry VIII. But it wasn't just that. They performed plays and masques down on the waterfront, because that was the first beginnings of the early plays.
If thou dost love, fair hero, cherish it. She shall be thine.
One of the works was called a comedy written in the vernacular of free will. Now, I've suggested that might be the comedy of free will, called As You Like.
The fool doth think he is wise, but the wise man knows himself to be a fool.
I'd rather have a fool to make me merry.
I want a divorce.
And you will get one for me.
Ironically, the king postponed permanent employment of the Bassanos because of one of numerous deadly outbreaks that plagued England during his reign.
We wouldn't have modern English these days without them, because they brought their knowledge of Hebrew, Aramaic, Latin, Greek, and brought it all together.
Enter his very own Juliet.
Who is she? Dream on, Will.
I heard you were a poet.
I was a poet till now.
Good that the Bassanos did, I believe, paved the way for other Jews in the end, because they brought so much to the table, especially, you know, with their literature and so on.
Why is their art beautiful?
I love thee. By my life, I do. I say I love thee more than he can do.
In Genesis of the Shakespearean works, Peter explains Geronimo Bassano penned some of the early plays in Latin, not English, and that the family performed the plays on wagons for the king and even young Princess Elizabeth along the waterfront before Shakespeare was even born.
Why did you stop writing?
I've never let the truth get in the way of a good story.
William Shakespeare was basically an actor, a tinker. He was known as basically a fraudster.
All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances.
A drunken tinker who was picked up outside a London pub drunk, who woke up in a bed pretending he was a lord, and they conned him into thinking he was something he was not.
If you're honest with yourself, then whatever you write, all is true.
And what's more, Peter has discovered that Baptista Bassano was young Princess Elizabeth's music teacher, and that Baptista owned an original playhouse in England, but died young. Peter is convinced Baptista was murdered.
I am my father's daughter. I am not afraid of anything.
But Baptista's daughter, Emilia Bassano, turned her tragedy into a life's purpose of bringing justice and redemption.
Dr. Peter Matthews has been researching the sonnets for his entire adult life, and after 15 years, he has released his comprehensive summary on the sonnets. In it, he says he decodes all of Emilia Bassano's secret clues of cosmology, the immortality of the soul, the afterlife, even angels, and the prophetic powers of the divine feminine during this age of the woman.
Shall I compare thee to a summer's day? Thou art more lovely and more temperate. Rough winds do shake the darling buds of May.
As soon as I read the first 2 lines of the sonnets, I knew it was Zoharic imagery. And first 19 sonnets, they're all on Bereshit. I believe I was the one meant to discover this.
My mistress's eyes are nothing like the sun. Coral is far more red than her lips red.
Emilia Bassano was a scholar, a master Kabbalist in her own right. She was an incredible woman. Her prophetic utterances, I believe, came from a higher source.
If snow be white, why, then her breasts are done. If hairs be wires, black wires grow on her head.
Many scholars have delved into the identity of the mysterious Dark Lady of Shakespeare and the possibility that she is none other than the highly educated poet and Kabbalist Emilia Bassano. In fact, Hollywood is calling, with Tiffany Haddish attached to play Emilia Bassano in a series called The Bardess. Peter is certain that Emilia is the one who translated into English and redacted several family plays, including The Tempest and Taming of the Shrew.
The point, the tempest that I bade thee. I boarded the king's ship. In every cabin I flamed amazement.
The play of the Taming of the Shrew tells the story very well.
My tongue will tell the anger of my heart.
I will marry you.
I'd rather die!
There is an earlier play called The Taming of a Shrew, which I have discussed in detail in my first volume here. It actually details the characters of Emilia Bassano, Alfonso Lania, her husband, William Shakespeare, and a fellow called the Tapster.
Emilia was a contemporary of Shakespeare's, but Peter insists she was a victim of Shakespeare's dark tendencies.
In the old age, black was not counted fair, or if it were, it bore not beauty's name.
The story is actually about protecting women from evil-disposed men. The whole thing is exposing the beating and the rape of Emilia Bassano, as is the rape of Lucrece.
Not from the stars do I judgment pluck, and yet methinks I have astronomy, but not to tell of good or evil luck.
Emilia was also a mystic who studied Kabbalistic astrology. Ironically, the names of the rings of Uranus are named after Shakespearean characters. Peter says Emilia prophesied 400 years ago this time of the woman, also referred to as the Age of Aquarius and Age of Messiah.
That woman is a woman!
The house is stirring. It is a new day.
It is a new world.
I believe that Emilia was given certain precepts as she was writing her work, if you call it divine inspiration, to be able to forecast what we're entering now, what we're going to see in the future. And she wrote these things down in a guided message that's encoded.
The bird is the Shekhinah, the nest is the temple, and the chicks are Israel.
She is a guiding light to all of us today, to be able to see our way through these dark periods. She was an incredible woman with a far greater enlightenment than what I will ever have.